So here we have the front and the back of our tool chest, and we have the ends, which we cut to size on the table saw. And before we start putting this stuff together, we want to make two very important marks that will guide us through the process so that we don't turn things upside down or the wrong way. And so we're going to make on the top edge of the parts a thing called the Cabinetmakers Triangle, a very old and useful thing, even if you can't read. And the Cabinetmakers Triangle is simply an equilateral triangle that you scribe, and you make it nice and dark so you can see it. And the triangle has a point that points towards the front, and then the base of the triangle is the back of the piece. So no matter where you go with these parts, you can always orient them and put them right back together and know that, this is always the front part, this is always the back part. You don't need to label them A, B, B, Q, Q, or know which way is north. One triangle and you're done. Now, on the end pieces, the triangle is just a wee bit different. And so what we're going to do there is we're going to put it like this. And it tells us the same information. It's the same equilateral, almost, triangle. And the point points towards the front of the case, and the back is towards the back. So now these can come apart, or these can come apart, and we can orient the parts we'll get them right back to where we need to be. So those marks are very important. Don't move forward without them. They will save your hiney. So let's start putting these together. So I'll take this, and we'll start with the back. I always like to start in the back of a case because that's, if you make a mistake when you're just getting started before you're warmed up, better to make it at the back. So here we have the back piece, and we're going to orient the triangle so you can see it. And then we are going to put the back in place. And then usually when I'm working with a person, and Ty counts as a person, we'll sometimes call out triangle check to make sure that the triangles are all oriented before we do anything crazy. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to take your combination square and you want to set it for 3/8 of an inch. And what we're going to do with this combination square is we're going to scribe what is called a shot line along here so that we know where to put the screws. Now you can do this by eye, but you sure will wish you have done this when you do that. So excuse me, Ty, I'm just going to reach right in front of you. And sorry about the picture of my non-existent buttocks to our viewers at home. So now we have a shot line. We can put the combination square down. And then we're going to get out the glue. So we're going to glue the plywood, and then we are going to screw it. Now some people would say, well, that glue is not going to hold because this is end grain that we're gluing here. Well, that's not so. With sheet goods, every other ply is oriented in the opposite direction of the one above it and below it. And so what that means is this joint is about half face grain. And so you've got a lot of good glue strength here if you're willing to use it. So Ty, if you could just pull that apart, and we will just lay in a bead. Now, that might be a little too much glue, but glue's pretty cheap. So let's put that together. And now what I'd like Ty to do is flush these joints up as best he can. Now don't worry about it being completely square to the floor or anything, but what we really want is them flush. Your fingers can feel about 1/1000th of an inch out, and so you can get them very close. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where the first 2 screws are going to go. I'm just going to start them in 2 inches from the end. Now, some people will say I have a little anal retentiveness, and some people just go and screw and put the screws wherever they like, but I prefer to be as neat as possible. So we're going to start back here, and Ty, is that flush?
Yes.
Okay, and so if you'll sight across here to make sure I'm going straight down, and I am sighting this way to make sure that I am up and down, so I'm going right where I want to go. Then we get our screws. Put one in there just to hold it. And while I've got this out, we're going to screw the other edge from my square.
Go back this way.
Okay, like that?
Yep.
Okay. You don't want to make the counter bore too deep, otherwise the pegs won't fill it. So we'll put that in there. Now I could drive these in by hand, or I can use the driver feature of the drill driver. And you can use just about any bit here, and this is probably going to be a number 2 Phillips. So we will make sure that that fits in there. It does. So we will secure this bit in here, and there are a lot of fancy bit holders, but the chuck will grip just about any of them. Then you want to switch to low speed, because you don't want to drive the screws in too fast, and then change the clutch. I usually start somewhere in the middle, and we'll see how that drives. So we've got it in there. A little too much clutch. Okay, looks good. So now we're going to switch back. To this, and we'll mark another set of screws, and we'll do these like 6 inches in, and 4 or 5 screws are going to be about all you need to do this, each corner. So I'll put one here, and one here, and then one right in the middle. So we'll drill here. Back on high speed. Well, this might seem like cheating, but it actually holds together just like that first big farmer's chest that we were looking at before. And so if it lasts 150 years, I think that's a pretty good start. So we're going to continue here and do all 4 corners, and then we will turn our attention to flushing up the joints and wiping off some of the excess glue. Okay, we've got the case all screwed up. This is the front, as you can see from our triangle right here. And got the same number of screws driven all the way in. We've got glue all over the place that we're going to clean up here. But before we do that, we want to put this case on the floor and get the triangle up. So it's going to go over that. That's good. And we want to check the case for square. And we're not going to square up the case perfectly at this point, but we are, if it's way out of square, we'll kind of push it into square because the bottom is going to actually square up our carcass. So Ty, if you wouldn't mind. So I am at 45 and 11/16 and 45, no, wait, go back. Try it again. Put it on the tab, sorry, people. Okay, yeah, wow, okay, 45. I was looking at the wrong side. Stupid numbers, 45 and 3/8. Give it to me the same way, okay. Okay, so this is only 45. So this long dimension needs to be pushed in. So Ty, if you could put your foot down there. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to push this direction to squeeze the long direction, 45 and 3/8, about 3/16. So just to get it close while the glue dries and see if we can improve things. We can probably pull that out with the bottom, but might as well do as much as we can here. So now we're at 45 and 5/16 and 45, still at 45. So we still need to do some more pushing here. We might not be able to do much more. You got your foot there? So, but I'm pretty sure the bottom will allow this to pull it square. After this, okay, 45 and 3/8. then we're going to clean up this glue. And then we are going to cut the bottom to size, and we're going to turn this over, and we're going to screw the bottom in place. But we're not going to use glue, and exactly why we're not going to use glue is something I'll cover in the next section. Okay. Well, as you know, the case is a little bit out of square, and so we are going to use the bottom board, which is a piece of 1/2-inch ply, to square things up. Cut this on the table saw and cross-cut it with the circ saw. And we found, using the square, that this corner right here was the most square of our bottom. And so we're going to use this corner right here to square up the rest of the case. So what we did during our little break here is we screwed down this one long line all along here, real tight. And then what we're going to do is we are going to torque or rotate, or sort of rack the case, and then screw the bottom to the case here, and that will square things up through the whole case. Now, as you can see, our little shot line that we drew is a little bit off from where the screws really need to go. So Ty is going to find the middle of our 3/4-inch plywood and make a shot line for the screws. Now, you're not going to use glue here, and the reason is that the part of a tool chest that gets the most abuse is the bottom. It gets rotted, mice eat it, and so you want to be able to replace it very easily. And so we're just going to screw it in place, and then it'll be replaceable later on, and the chest will have a much longer life. Traditional chests would be nailed. Same idea. All right, so Ty, why don't you hold that. So we're going to, there we are, we're racking the case. And Ty, tell me when you are ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Now this would be nice if I had 2 drills, or one of those quick change chucks, but this works fine. So we're going to put in a couple more, and then that will hold it in place while we put in the screws all the way around the perimeter to secure the bottom. Once we get the bottom all on, then we can flush it up all around with a block plane, flush up the edges that we screwed together before, and then we'll be ready to put on the solid wood skirts. Pretty simple, only took a little bit of time to get us to this point. How's that? All right, not bad. We've got the bottom all screwed on, so now I'm going to take a block plane and I'm going to just trim any overhang so that it is flush to the case. Now, if it's a little bit, if it's not proud of the case, if it's actually recessed, that's fine, because all this is going to be covered with skirting, so none of this will show. So you just need to get it all level or slightly less than the size of the case. And once I get this bottom flushed up, then I'm going to turn my attention to flushing up any areas that might be proud here from our first joints. I've got a little bit of proud plywood there. So we're almost done. And then, after this is all flushed up, we can turn our attention to putting the skirts that'll go all the way around and deciding whether we're going to use miters or butt joints. And that's the next question of the day.